I'm going to start my story. So there's going to be three dimensions to what we're doing here today. First of all, I'm Tim O'Neill. One dimension is, I've just started, I'm going to talk a bit about what it's like to ask. The second dimension is we're going to do some real life / role playing. We've got three ventures that are going to come up here and make an ask of a mentor who is playing the role of something. And the third thing involves all of you. And that is, A, I'd like you in the next 15 minutes as you're listening to everything, think about a significant ask you want to make and who you're going to ask that of. Just identify that in the next 15 minutes, and then we're going to take a second step with you in the second part of the presentation. I'm going to give us a little context. I left Colgate in 1978, Memorial Day weekend. I got home on a Sunday. Monday morning, by the way, we had 18% interest rates, gas lines that were an hour long, the Dow hadn't moved up in 5 years, and no one was hiring. At breakfast the next morning, I announced to my parents that I had a job. I thought it was a great thing. I said, great. Where? Well, it was at a bar. So they digested the bar part after a while. They said, well, are you like a bartender? I said, no. Are you like a waiter? No, I'm working at the door. So my job, I'm a bouncer. So that's a great career path in bouncing. So my challenge in 1978 was to get a real company with a career prospects to hire a history major from Colgate and to convince people that I could sell based on everything I'd learned at this school and the disciplines and all that kind of stuff. And it worked. So I was a salesman for 3 years, went back to graduate school because I was bored in that job, was in investment banking for 25 years where we were pitching client business all the time. We learned a ton of stuff about asking over those 25 years. But more importantly, in the last 10 years, I've been an investor in private companies. Most of them are startups. I'm on the investment committee and a partner of a group called Golden Seeds. We're the second largest angel network in the country, and we have a venture fund. And relative to the ask, I would tell you a few things. When we evaluate companies, we have 23 in our portfolio, and I think I've made investments personally in over 30 of these startup companies. The idea is important. The idea is essential, it's there, it's important, but we have to get past the idea and we invest in people, especially at the early stage, so that all that stuff about personal brand is so relevant. And the way we learn about people is over the course of finding out about the business, see how the entrepreneur responds and reacts and works with us as we try to figure out what's going on with the venture. And then the biggest hurdle we have is getting convinced that the entrepreneur can commercialize the product, can take it to market, to sell it and sell it and sell it and sell it. Sell 700 cookies and then sell 7,000 cookies. It's not just important, it's vital. And each of you have to get to that stage of being able to make the ask. So as this says, it's really not about a product or an idea being hatched, but it's getting someone to buy it or buy into it. There are so many great ideas that are squandered because someone couldn't sell the idea to someone. Someone couldn't build the team. That's why mastering the ask is important, and that's really brought into action. And it applies to everything. Everything you're doing. Campus initiatives, where you have to get some stakeholder on campus to do something for you. Not-for-profits, where you're asking people, not-for-profits, you're asking people either for money or for their time or for both. And the return isn't some sort of financial thing, you get a tax write-off maybe, but it's got to be some other level of connectivity. or for-profit ventures, which is probably the easiest thing to get your hand around, right? I'm going to make you money. But in every one of these cases, you have to think about who you're selling to and keep that in mind. And we're going to do some role playing in a second, but you have to start by doing a little bit of homework. There's a lot of homework that's going to go into every one of your asks. The first step is, what's my objective? Do I want someone to buy my product, invest in my company? Do I want them to join an advisory board and give me advice? I'm asking them for their time and their thoughts. Do I want them to join my team? Do I want to hire that person? Do I want them to be a partner? What's that all about, and how do I get that done? And that's just the beginning of a really long list. So what I'd like to do is bring up the first venture, and is that what you do? Is it Halsey?
Yeah. All you need. All you need.
And so we need 2 chairs. Everyone's thinking about what their big ask is going to be, right? I haven't seen a piece of paper come out yet. We need a 3rd chair.
Oh, I didn't know that.
We need someone to be a...
Well, let's have them make the ask of who they want.
Right. So what are you looking for?
Investment capital to build our application.
You want investment capital to build your application, okay?
Jake, you want to do it?
Sure.
Jake is serving as a venture partner on a fundraiser.
Perfect. And he's cranky today, so be careful.
Jake probably has 500 different requests per year for capital, and he makes 5 investments.
501 now.
Hopefully 6.
Hopefully 6. Great.
How's this going?
Okay. Hi, I'm Lita Rosenthal, and this is my partner, Jenny Lunt. And our application for our venture is All You Need, a mobile application for those suffering from Alzheimer's to communicate more easily with their family and loved ones. So right now we're in the process of raising capital to build the application. We've conducted 1 focus group, and it was very successful. We also conducted a survey where everyone except for 1 person said it wouldn't be useful. There were about 8 people. But a few people said it wouldn't be useful because their loved one isn't tech savvy. But with the advent of baby boomers, the number of people who are going to be technologically savvy being diagnosed with Alzheimer's or dementia-related illnesses is increasing. So that's a very key market trend.
Just a little off of that, right now, baby boomers make up 25% of the population, but they consume 40% of all tech capital. So that's very important, especially with the number of baby boomers with Alzheimer's supposed to double within the next 10 years. So I think our app is kind of at the forefront of catering to those needs.
Cool. How does it make money?
So you can sell the application for any price. We're thinking about $1 sounds fair. Part of the application, since it's supposed to be intuitive and simple, and for cognitively impaired, there aren't going to be any ads or anything of that nature. But if people in the family, so the first person who buys the app is the patient, and then their primary caregiver. The average family is going to be about 4 people, so there's $6. And then your physician is going to get it, so that's 7. And there's 5 million people in the United States suffering from Alzheimer's, 200,000 with early onset Alzheimer's, who are a prime market. And like we said, that's going to double, so that's going to be about 400,000 by 2030. And then additionally, the cognitively impaired, that number varies, but it's huge as well.
So, am I just supposed to ask the actual questions? Are you?
EU?
Okay, so a couple of things right off the bat about the business and your scalability, like what Tim was talking about, and then to the actual ask part for the capital that you need. If you get 100% of the market, even between now and when it doubles, and let's say, you know, there's a terrible epidemic of Alzheimer's and it doubles
Right.
faster than you think, your absolute total addressable market with that monetization model is going to be around $1 million, you know,
Right.
$1 million or $2. which when you think about, and that's a one-off cost, there's no re-up charges, there's no recurring revenue, so you're basically gonna have to wait every year for the next batch of, what, how many people a year, did you say?
So there's 5 million people suffering
Mhm.
right now, and that number is increasing every year. By 2030, that's supposed to double, so 100, 200,000 a year.
100, 200, so every single year, your maximum, just based on the business model that you highlighted, your maximum revenue, additional revenue each year is gonna be about $100,000 to $200,000.
Not quite, because the point of the application is communication. And in order to communicate within the application, you need to buy the application. So, like I said, the physicians involved and the average family is about 4 in the United States. So because of that,
Okay, so quintuple it,
Yeah.
or, so it's a max then of about $1 million a year, if you get
Right.
every single person and every single family member,
right,
which would make me, and I think that would make, if I were in your shoes, would lead to maybe thinking about a different business model, maybe a subscription.
right.
Because it is about communication, so you're gonna
Mhm.
wanna maintain. So maybe something even as simple as $1 a month. And if you can really prove to me the value
Right.
of your of your application, that's gonna help me communicate better, $1 a month it's nothing. I mean, that's getting a medium coffee instead of a large.
Mhm.
Okay, well, let's have some kind of thoughts about what's going on here. Any gut reactions to what you just saw?
As an investor, he seems justifiably concerned about scalability.
Let me ask a question. What did you learn about your target? What do you
That-
know about him right now?
The bottom line is very important, and scalability is essential. Like, it's at the forefront of his decision-making. One thing I'd like to add, though, so we're entering the business with Alzheimer's in mind, but in our pitch, which you'll see later, we also talk about how dementia-related patients are also involved in this, because that's really common. And so I've talked to like a number of potential users of this application, and like even like younger people, like 40 or 50, they're like, I might use this just because it's just so much simpler than normal communication. And especially when the population is aging, even if they don't have dementia, it's pretty common for people's level of cognitive ability to decrease as they age. So it's pretty useful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would recommend that if you're talking to someone about investment, that next phase is not so far out there and so disconnected with your core. That, you know, our first step is this, but the scalability is really this.
Okay.
Andy?
Lita, what do you think you really learned here that's going to help you the next time you sit down with anyone for any ask? What's the fundamental lesson here?
To like start with the big picture and then kind of hone in on where we're at. No?
No.
Okay, just kidding.
What did you really learn here?
That he's interested in how much profit he's gonna get back.
Right.
So,
So the real important thing for everybody here to know is before you ever sit down to ask somebody to join your team, invest you, do anything, don't think about what you're asking. Think about what's important to them, because that's the first, second, third most important thing if you want to succeed. So if you could roll the tape back and you knew coming in here, asking an investor for money, what he or she is going to be thinking about is X, Y, and Z, then you tailor your pitch to preemptively address those things. So Jake doesn't have to start going, wait a minute, let me do some math here. This looks like a tiny market with a bad model.
He's doing math on the fly. which
Yeah,
he
I was
loves to
just
do.
Yeah.
gonna hurt somebody.
But seriously, this is critically important if you want to succeed with your asks.
So I'm going to talk later on about some death moves. And I didn't put it on the header of the slide. I like it. Death move number one, if we did a pie chart on mouth time, the venture had 70% of it, and the target had 30, and you want to reverse that.
Okay.
The golden ratio, right? You got ears and eyes and just one mouth. You want to use that time to probe. So we'll get into some, in the next few slides, we'll start talking about ways to do that. The other thing is, I don't think you ever said what you wanted.
Yeah, that was gonna be.
Right
my
up
next point.
front, say, you know, glad to meet you, we're here because we want to raise $100,000 and we think we got something pretty interesting. But first, we'd love to hear a little bit more about you and how you approach things. And get the dialogue started as opposed to the other death move, starting an elevator pitch.
So you want us
The elevator
to
pitch might have a
literally
place in the whole thing. Right up front, tell me what you want.
Because-
And then try to engage with him.
Yeah,
Another,
like-
another way of thinking about it is your target, you want to get inside their head
Right.
as much as humanly possible. You want to know as much as possible about them. Now, this is a simulation, so doing your homework, you can't really have done it. So you're kind of doing your homework on the fly by interrogating your target a little bit. But if this were real life, you'd want to know as much as humanly possible, and the internet helps with that these days, about what makes that person tick before you sit down and meet. If I'm meeting somebody new for the first time and I have an objective with that person, I have scrubbed every bit of publicly available information, regardless of what my agenda is. But if I'm trying to get something from somebody, you want to know what's inside their head.
And the ask itself can frame the conversation in a lot of ways. So if you had said, you know, what we really need is just $20,000 to get a very basic V1 because we're still working on our business model. We're not sure if the dollar one-off buy is the right thing, so we just want something we can test a couple different things out. That's going to be a much different conversation. And if you come in and say, well, we're looking for $500,000, it gives us 18 months runway, we're going to build out our final product, we have our business model, we have our target addressable market, we have our commercialization strategy. Those are two completely different conversations, and the fact that you came in without the ask, you know, it may very well be a flaw in my mind, but I immediately snapped towards the second one, which is when you started talking about your business model. Then my first thought was, oh, this isn't commercially viable.
Okay.
Whereas if you had shown me the ask, shown me what stage you guys were at by how much you were asking for and what you were asking for that money for, what its purpose was, it would give me kind of, even subconsciously, a more even playing field with you guys in terms of how we're going to frame this conversation.
Okay. Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yep. All right, so thank you very much.
Great job.
And so there's a tremendous amount of homework you need to do about your target before you even meet, to the extent you can. Obviously, we can't facilitate that here, but the objective in getting to is to get to yes, and the way to do that is to really build a relationship. So it's not a me, a we, they sort of dynamic, but a we dynamic where you and the target are doing something together. So you want to, today it's so much easier than it was 30 years ago. You've got social media. I'm raising a fund right now. We've raised, accomplishment, 12.5 out of $15 million. And much of that in the last 4 weeks. Every time I meet with an investor, I go to their LinkedIn page. And yeah, what they do for a living is great, and I'll go to their website and research all that. I also go down to the bottom and look where they went to school, not-for-profits they might be engaged with, what other stuff makes them tick. I had a call 2 days ago with a guy. He'd suggested we do a call today. And he's a big investor. He has I thought he had the wherewithal. Still think he could. But I also saw that he did mentoring, ran a mentoring program up in New Haven. And when I finally got him on the phone, I said, gee, sorry, I couldn't do Saturday, but as you know, I went to Colgate and I have an obligation to get up there because I work with kids up there once a month. He goes, you do? Because I knew that this was a hook, and we talked about that for 15 minutes. It's actually a pretty interesting war story. He had just bought a company, and the company has huge potential working capital requirements. He's going to have to put a lot of cash into this, and he needs to have that dry powder of cash to put in. So we talked about that, and that was the reason why he couldn't invest in my fund. Fine. We finished the conversation by, that's great, I understand it. Gee, I'd love to grab lunch with you sometime in the next 2 weeks to talk about that working capital problem, because I might have some places to go with that. His response was, fantastic. And I'll think of some investors for you along the way. So I got the most I could get out of the meeting. We developed a relationship. We're going to have lunch in 2 weeks. And who knows, he might end up investing and saying, gee, I'll make an exception, I'll figure it out. But it was all because I'd gone to that LinkedIn page and figured out stuff about him, and the conversation for the first 10 minutes was all about as if we were sitting at a dinner party next to each other. And so it's really, this is, the key to this today is thinking about relationship selling. So everyone's got their ask and their target. Have you all figured that out? Raise your hand if you haven't that part done yet. Who you're going to ask and what it might be. So just,
Haven't. You have it, right? You better.
Right.
You're up here in a bit.
yeah, exactly. So everyone start working on that, and then start thinking about the homework you would do to learn more about the target. It demonstrates you care. You start to earn the trust of the person. If the person has a problem, you say, how can we solve it together, right? You get on the same side as the person. And you know your biggest obstacle to success sometimes is status quo, inertia. I love this slide. Will's doesn't like very much. It's never been done before. Why would I ever do that? Right? You're going to run into that all the time. But if you get a person from being cynical and turn them into, hey, I really like this dude, and I like the approach, and it feels right, then all of a sudden that person might be positively inclined towards doing whatever you want to do, whatever you're trying to getting to yes. So, a handful of kind of points, and then we'll bring up our second panel. Listen, connect with the emotional side of the person. Use the target's language. Ask questions in a way that the target's going to relate to the question. Be ready for any objection. Someone asked earlier today about that. You got to anticipate. What are people going to say about, I'm building hotels outside of Miami, and the Miami development is going crazy. People think valuations are stupid. I got to handle that objection every day. And I parry that. Some of it's early, some of it's later in the conversation. I save some of it a little dry powder. Gee, we actually have a different strategy. It's going to kind of immunize you from this sort of risk in terms of the market being hot. But then I come back with some stuff later on. I say, but gee, I'm still really nervous about it. Yeah, but look, we were doing this here because I got 5,000 students are going to use this product. Whatever it might be. But think about the objections and how you're going to handle them.
Tim, I was just going to say, where do you, I'm curious, because that's a really important one. Where do you think you develop the skills to handle the objections? And maybe know what the objections would be?
Practice.
Practice, yeah. That's why, when these candidates go on their debates, they sit and they have people fire stuff at them all day long. If you've heard, 5 people ask you 15 questions, chances are when you actually get onto the stage for the real ask, you've heard the objections and you figured out how to respond to it.
I used to, when I first got into investment banking, we had anyone here know the character Mr. Burns from The Simpsons? This guy looked like Mr. Burns. And this senior banker, I was so petrified of the guy. We went to do a big client pitch. He said, you know what? He would take a middle, if we had 3 people on the team, he would take the middle person, not the lower rung person, and have them sit, if we could get it done, on the client side of the table. And tell that person, you're not going to speak, you're just going to sit there, and I want you to observe the client, think about the client, and after the meeting, when our brief after the meeting, that person was always the first person to talk. What was the client thinking, feeling? How did it translate? How did we come up? I thought this guy was this cold, crusty dude. He was this wily, the guy was good for a reason.
Hey, Tim, there's another piece that fits in here, and it's part of listening to the emotional side. Listen to the cultural side too. Okay, most of what we're talking about is a very U.S. centric orientation, But, you know, you're all more global citizens than people were, say, 25, 30 years ago. Part of the homework you need to do is understand the frame of reference culturally of the person who is your target. And I can tell you from firsthand experience that if you're sitting across the table from someone in Germany, this conversation proceeds very differently than it does if you're sitting across the table from someone in Russia, for example. And we don't, this is not the time to go into the granularity, but just understand that that's an element to go to, that frames out their expectations of what constitutes a proper discussion of this.
That's a great point. You don't even have to go outside the U.S. to experience that. Steve Rock was talking yesterday about the Midwest versus New York.
Sure.
Or
it's more subtle as you move around here, but yes, it's very true.
So the other thing is, for every meeting, you have to have an objective. What do I want to get out of this thing? And you may have to modify it on the fly. You know, my conversation with this investor the other day, he clearly wasn't going to say, yeah, I'll write you a check for $1 million. So I thought, gee, how do I keep this going to the next meeting or the lunch or whatever it might be? In the role-playing exercise we saw, it would have been great if you'd said, gee, we'd love you to invest $50,000. We're going to return X for you. That's the solution for someone who's an investor. They want return. And then start creating the roadmap to getting to the goal of getting that person there. What's everything that has to get done to be there, and be part of the creation of that roadmap. So let's do. We've already talked about this. More time asking and listening than talking. Turning the features, the business description, into benefits, but do it in a way that has some contrast. And by that I mean, gee, my widget is going to make you feel good, and it's going to make you feel better than all the other widgets out there. And then always probing for information. So who are we using next?
You guys are up. Connect Lacrosse.
Awesome.
So we're talking to a professional lacrosse player. I don't know who really wants to step into those shoes. Should be interesting.
Well, you're trying to find.
We're signing a coach is the ask that we're making. We're pitching our idea. We have a dual-sided market. We're pitching to them to join, have them join our team.
Do you have any mentors that coach sports in here? I think Steve would be a pretty tough candidate.
That's what I thought.
Sorry, what am I doing?
You're up.
I'm playing fire.
You're playing the role of a coach, but they're trying to sign up for the
So you better explain to Steve why you're approaching him.
Okay.
Pretty early on.
clueless.
Right.
Key lesson for everybody, never be staring at your phone when Wills is looking for a volunteer.
Tim Truesdale. First of all, let me tell you, huge fan looking over your stats, awards, and accolades here. I see that you could be a pretty good fit for our team. A little background first. It's actually surprising, but the same percentage of lacrosse players that come from New York City every year actually equal that of Arizona as far as D1 lacrosse players, which is baffling because New York is bordered by 3 main hotspots for lacrosse: New Jersey, I'm completely blanking, Westchester, actually 4, Connecticut, and Long Island, of course. Essentially what we're trying to do here is we're trying to bring the one-on-one golf pro approach to lacrosse lessons with New York City youth. The reality is these kids are in need of lessons, and at the same time, people like you, there's a tremendous untapped resource of coaches like you living and working in New York City. Now, before you ask any questions, I'm going to stop you for 1 second and try to keep things as simple as possible. As far as hours, you choose your own hours. Commitment, once again, it's up to you. Profit per 1 hour lesson, you're going to be making roughly $100.
So are you trying to get me to be a coach for you?
Yes, I'm trying to get you to join our team. So essentially, bare bones, We bring the kids, schedule the field times, all you have to do is show up. The way I see it, you're doing something you love with kids you care, all while making some extra profit.
So how is your program different than Nike sports camps?
I mean, Nike sports camps. So the main problem with any kind of summer camp, especially for lacrosse, is that there's no individual attention. And at the same time, as a coach, particularly for your side here, is that takes up a week at a time. That's never a one-on-one thing. What we're doing here is, I get it, you're a busy guy, you work an everyday job. What you do here is we let you pick your own hours. I don't care if it's a Saturday or a Sunday at 3 o'clock. You pick the times that you want to give these lessons. We'll set up the fields, we'll bring the kids. All you have to do is show up, give the lesson, money's in your pocket.
So you have a curriculum that I'm going to follow?
Well, the curriculum is really up to you. We have a game plan in the sense that we are altering our lessons based on what the needs of the kids. So the way the kids are signing up is they say what they need work on. We're going to give you a lesson plan, but obviously as an experienced lacrosse player, it's up to you to really decide how you're going to follow that. The trust is in you. What we're signing is we're signing coaches that we believe in. We're not really signing a curriculum or a method necessarily, but people that we believe in instead.
So my approach to coaching is I look at physical conditioning first, and then I look at fundamental skills, and then I look at game strategy. And if you look at, if you have a kid, I'm dialing into this town on this day and this day, and now it's good for me, and you're gonna send me over to that town on that day. Where is the continuity of lesson so that the kid is getting the building blocks to be a strong competitor? It doesn't seem, because another coach might put skills first and physical conditioning second. I don't understand how this is good for the kid.
So fortunately for people like me, as not the most athletic guy in the world who somehow managed to play D1 lacrosse, lacrosse is a lot more about fundamentals. The element of the stick really changes the game. So as far as that is, what we're having you do is teach them the fundamentals. We're helping them with their shooting, their dodging, their passing. We're leaving the actual team aspect up to the coaches themselves. Your golf coach isn't necessarily going to be standing with you for an entire match. What they're going to be doing is correcting your swing. So what we're doing is making those micro changes so they can learn from that.
This is only about skills.
This is purely about skills at this point.
How much do I make?
How much do you make? You're making roughly $100 an hour.
Anyway, let's, any observations?
You talk too much.
Okay.
It was about 90-10.
All right.
That's bad.
Make that personal and emotional connection right at the beginning when you introduce yourself. Try to like connect.
Well, I feel like the main problem here is like I wasn't like if I were talking to Ryan Walsh or like Jordan Wolf or someone like that, I would have like a lot more ammunition in the sense that I would actually I've watched all these guys growing up. I was a huge lacrosse nerd, watched hours and hours and hours of videos. I would have had a lot more to talk about in that sense. In the sense that lacrosse is really a cold sport in that aspect. So like laying it out for people who don't necessarily play lacrosse is kind of a little bit harder in that sense where you really are specializing.
You just said you'd have a lot more to talk about. That would be the wrong direction.
Exactly.
Seriously.
I might have said, I'm here to talk about ways that coaches can make more dollars.
Yeah.
That's probably of interest to you.
Mm-hmm.
Before I get into that, could we talk a little bit about how you coach and your philosophies and what and how you look at coaching dollar extra earning opportunities? And then let me just talk and then pick up the threads of what I left you,
Okay.
package it around so that if I heard you correctly, you believe a lot in skills development, you'd love to be able to be flexible in your earning power, and you've got plenty of free time. I have a program for you.
Okay.
Ask him about, why do you coach? What do you love about the coaching? Why do you allocate your time that way? And then work your way in.
What the problem is, all these people are not currently coaching. What these guys are is they've all retired, they're all working Wall Street jobs. We're saying you get a couple hours here. If you're interested in this is what we're offering.
Well, if I have a Wall Street job, I'm not interested in $100 an hour.
I mean, these guys are all low-level people, and they're doing it to support the love of the game. I think it's a lot more than just.
So there's a psychic reward.
Absolutely.
what they're doing.
Yeah, there's a
You've learned,
community.
you've gone nowhere with with your target on getting that emotional connection to the game and whatever psychic reward there is for maybe just volunteering their time, let alone having to get paid for it. I mean, this is psychic reward for us.
You're a great player. Would you like to make $100 an hour in your spare time sharing some of the skills you've developed with deserving lacrosse players?
The lesson I got day one in coming out of school and going into sales was people buy for 3 reasons: hope of gain, fear of loss, or ego. I'm either in it for the money, that's the hope of gain, or I'm destitute and I need a job, but it stretches beyond just a pitch. What these guys, the psychic connection, is all about ego. Who do you see yourself as an individual? My wife sees herself as somebody wonderful and deserving and all that, and that's why she buys expensive handbags and shoes, because she would never be caught in Walmart shoes, because that's not who she is as a person. Her fancy shoes do not make her run faster. It's not about hope of gain, and she's not worried about arch support.
Yeah.
She's doing it out of complete ego. So, but you could have found out by talking to me about who I am as an individual and my thoughts about coaching, whether I'm motivated by making more money, being with kids more, I really miss developing kids, or some sort of fear of loss. And I don't know what
Yeah,
that might have
absolutely.
been.
So I'd say, honestly, I've cleaned up my pitch in the way I give coaches. Like, the real way that I'm pitching it to these guys is they're all 22, 23, right out of college, and they could all use some extra pocket money that I say, why not? If you want to throw it down at the bar, be my guest, absolutely. But that's really what the goal is, just to have some extra pocket spending money, doing something they already know how to do, that they've done every single day of their life since 5th grade, 4th grade, you name it.
But I gave you a couple hints, though.
Yeah.
I talked about my ethics, my principles of coaching, and where I felt it was really important to have a pyramiding of, and that was your opportunity to say, in our program, we enable somebody to do exactly that kind of coaching.
That's right. You're not encumbered by the syllabus.
Right.
I think what's really important that you're all seeing here and struggling with, which is a really good thing, is that at the beginning of this year we focused on just getting some basic foundational stuff in place so that you had some confidence to talk about your ventures. The 60-second pitch, getting some materials together. What you're seeing here is all of that in practice, and this isn't the 60-second pitch. This is you guys drawing on your liberal arts education, your critical thinkers. You're able to think on the fly. You're charismatic. You're worldly. Like, this is where you want to start using some of that. So you've built this foundation to stand on. This is like gameplay, and you're drawing on all those skills that you've been developing. So it's good that you're struggling. This is probably the first time that we've pushed you into these situations, so I think you're seeing it kind of in practice. We haven't coached this as much. So.
Right, great, thank you. So really what Steve was talking about was the stuff on the left side, just addressing concerns and indifference and skepticism and trying to pull that person into your boat. And then you have to be really sensitive to closing. Oh, Mary, you got to...
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
My point was just going to be that one of the biggest mistakes that people make is make assumptions about somebody. And I got the feel when we were up there assuming that because he was this name big name lacrosse player, he was going to be this person. And you never took the time to go conduct that experience.
Well, I just think it's kind of good. It's like talking to someone not within the lacrosse community. I think it's kind of tough to explain the intangibles and not necessarily.
Just because somebody's a good lacrosse player doesn't mean they're going to be a good coach. So you can't just make that assumption. I think that's kind of a problem that people miss in a lot of things. They assume things that aren't there.
Thank you.
So we're going to talk. I want to talk a little bit about closing, and we're going to go back on that after our next role play too. But you have to start thinking about when the person might be at yes, and you can be too early, too late. and then create the glide path to getting the deal done. I was on when I was at Bear Stearns from 1994 to 2006. I was a year into it. I had a big department, blah, 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 blah. And one of my younger guys became a really terrific banker, came up to me and said, my client wants to get on the phone with you. It was 5:30 in the evening. He said, the client said, yeah, we're thinking about doing this deal. This is what it would look like. I want your opinion on this. And instead of asking for the business, I said, Chuck, I said, this is the way I see this working. I said, what I think we should do is have a call right after the 8:30 economic numbers, and then we'll launch at 8:45 if everything is the way it is right now. And so I said, so let's think about everything we need to do to get to that. And he goes, that's great. Then I got off the phone, I looked at the banker, I said, we never asked for the order. We just got it. We took it. We assumed it. It's ours. The guy's like, you mean? I said, no. The guy was looking for us to just say, run with my ball. And so you have to just, that's a liberal artsy sort of thing. You have to just intuit when the person is ready to land.
The presumptive close.
Yeah.
You like that in red or blue?
So this is actually a picture of one of the mentors.
Childhood picture.
But these are things that I just, we've talked about all of them. Don't just go to the elevator pitch at the beginning. There's a place for it somewhere in the ask, possibly. So in marketing the fund that I have, we have a 52-page, very beautiful, expensive deck that we have in the form of a PowerPoint presentation. I typically point to 4 slides in the whole thing. And so don't rely on the scripted thing, because you gotta, again, this is more of a less formal, less structured conversation that you're typically going to have. And again, keep the mouth closed as much as you can. So let's have one.
I just want to ask a question about like the flipping of the percentages and the golden ratio. Like what exactly are you trying to target them to talk about? In the sense that like, why not keep it as simple as possible and just try to get them to say, yes, I agree, I'm in. But like, what are you trying to get them to talk about
Ever
specifically?
see Pee Wee Herman years ago?
Yeah.
Salesman! Salesman! That's what you're going to come off like. You want to connect with the person somehow. Again, gee, I read that you went to Colgate. Wow, so did I. Or, you're from Westchester. Gee, is lacrosse big there? Whatever it might. Get the conversation going in another way and get them to start talking.
Along those same lines, as the interviewing sales, whatever, the person who does most of the talking in the conversation generally thinks that the conversation went their way.
Yeah.
The person who does the least amount of talking probably is not as engaged. And that's why you want the person you're talking to be the one that does the talking.
So it's interesting, in marketing they talk a lot about thinking about the personas, the type of people that you're trying to appeal to for your product or your service. And that's a very abstract concept. The ask is at the personal level. It's not a persona, it's a human being. And so don't treat the target in the abstract. And then again, don't close too early, but have the guts to close when it's time. So
The people with the worst reputation in sales are car salespeople. But if you walk into a car dealership today and start talking about looking to buy a car, the olden days they would run straight to, Andy, you need this Buick LeSabre because you look like a Buick LeSabre guy.
Thank you.
But reality is today they walk in and say, so what are you thinking about today? Very open-ended question. Well, I really need a pickup truck. Oh, okay. Now, tell me about yourself. Is this going to be something where you're driving kids? All right, now you're selling the extended cab. Is this something that you're going to use for work? Are you thinking about snow plowing with it? all of a sudden you're getting all these pieces of information, and when at the end of that, now I'm guiding you to the luxury ended pickup truck with the extended cabin, the 250 that you can snowplow with, and now I've met all of your criteria that you said was important to you. If you've also said safety is very important to me, you will dwell a lot on the side impact airbags. If safety doesn't come up in the conversation, shut up about side impact air safety bags. Find out what's driving him into that car dealership, and then satisfy all his needs. Find out their needs first, though.
Let them do the work for you. They'll tell you.
Rex, you ready?
Yeah.
And Ace, fly fisherman, John knows
John wants
that.
to go fishing.
So, you're doing this as the lodge, you're doing this as the guide?
Well, what's your, we've spoken,
It's
so
a-
you're indifferent?
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's an ask to a guide, outfitter. You can act it out however you want, but. I was
You
just
need to
curious.
know.
So Rex, make clear to the audience who's the type of person.
So I'm pitching a guide to sign up and be a service provider for our company. So, do you want to do it as the lodge or guide? Guide would probably be easier for me.
Fine, then,
Okay.
well, I'm a guy.
So John, I came across your page a handful of different times over the past couple months. It looks like you've got an awesome company going on. I'd love to hear a little bit. Excuse me. I'd love to hear a little bit more about it, and then hopefully tell you a little bit about what I've been working on and see if we can work together in the future.
Sure, well, as you probably read, I'm expert in guiding people for a number of different species. I travel to destinations with them.
Where do you primarily guide out of?
Well, it depends on the season, you know. In the summertime, I spend a lot of time doing, on my boat, doing stripers and blues out on Long Island Sound. In March, April, I try and do a lot of tarpon on the fly down in Florida, and a little bit when they're running, and a little bit of bone fishing on the flats in the Bahamas when I get to Japan as well.
Okay. So seasonality, when do you head south?
Boy, you know, that's when I get asked.
Yeah.
It's when I get asked, and as you know, in this business, it's when it rains, it pours, right?
Exactly.
And it's feast or famine, you know. I'm either super busy or slow as molasses.
So, yeah, that sounds like everyone's problem, fundamental number one. So, what would you say your percentage of booked, or how booked are you throughout the year? Days you work, how many are booked?
Yeah, so, you know, I think of my business just like a hotel would think of theirs, or an airline would think of its. I look at my percentage occupancy or my utilization rate.
Mm-hmm.
And my utilization rate last year was a little down. It was only about 55% of my eligible days. You know, fortunately, I'm in a premium business, so I charge for it.
Mm-hmm.
But in good years, I'm up around 65, 70%, which is kind of where I like to be, because I like my free time to go fishing on my own, too.
That's a good perk. So, repeat customers, yes, no?
Yeah,
Pretty much all of them?
most of my business is repeat customers and word of mouth, referrals.
Word of mouth, okay. So, are you, I came across your information on Facebook, so I know you're at least on there. Do you use any of the other social media platforms?
Yeah, you know, I'm an old guy, so I'm pretty technologically unsophisticated. So I've got my page out there, and yes, I do get some calls coming in from that. But you know, fishermen are pretty low-tech kind of people. At least that's been my experience. That's why I get along with them so well. You know.
Yeah, I definitely can go that way. So, how do you keep track of your customers? Do you keep an online customer book?
Oh
Do you
man,
handwritten?
No, I've got files upon files upon files. It's a mess.
Interesting, very interesting. So, have you used any? How do you market your business at all? Do you pay for advertising? Are you online?
No, not really. You know, in the local paper, I'll throw an ad occasionally, but that's about it.
Very cool. So, My company at this stage, we're only in the business of trying to get you more trips. We're an information and booking site trying to make the process easier for both customers and guides to have more trips, have more happy trips. And it sounds like you're perfect for it. We'd love to be able to throw you on there. And
So where do your customers come from?
all over the country.
Really?
And it very much depends on kind of what stage we're at and where we kind of expect, or where our marketing dollars are going, but we're broad at this point, so anywhere.
And are these people who are interested in destination fishing?
Both, everything. So if you do offer these destination trips, we do have a bespoke process where you can go ahead and set up your trips and take them down to wherever. What locations do you fish?
Well, as I said, that's in the Bahamas. I go to Eleuthera a lot,
Okay.
and then off down in the Glades for target.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can find you customers that will go on these trips, and the advantage of it for you is that it doesn't cost anything. So you can sign up, and it is completely free. We will take a 10% commission on.
You read my mind. I was going to ask.
It's coming.
What's
yeah,
the
exactly.
cost?
What's the catch? So it's a 10% commission on any trip that we personally bring you. But in the end, it's a day that you didn't have booked to start. So we feel that's kind of a reasonable benchmark for it. So yeah, you get all the tools to manage your business. You have customer lists, you have email tools, and the beauty of it is there's a very, very streamlined booking process. So customers can find your profile, recognize you for the great service that you offer, and then actually convert on it. So everything can be housed on the site. You can use it to the full degree, or you can use it as simply putting up a page and putting yourself out.
So what's been the experience of your customers so far?
Excellent so far.
When I say your customers, I'm talking about the guys that you
Everyone has been very happy about it, very, very enthusiastic about the concept, in the fact that it is no serious ask for you. You just get yourself on there, put yourself out there, and it's more trips. Everyone has been very, very enthusiastic about it, and the people that we book with have loved it. Very, very streamlined process so far.
That sounds pretty interesting. And how many guides are you working with so far? Am I one of two, or am I one of 150?
So it's actually interesting. The New York and Florida are two of our target locations, and we have a handful on both of those spots so far. So you'll be very much a high priority for us, and because of the fact that you are as highly regarded as you are, hopefully our clients will recognize that, and we expect to have you prioritize very, very well. And I would like to add, if all the great photos that you've been working with, or taking, excuse me, that can work as kind of free marketing for you. So one of the exciting concepts that we're working with is taking our guide trip provider photos and like publishing them on the destination. So you are the one marketing that. We offer a commission on those if that actually translates to a trip. So you can even add a little extra money besides that.
Even better.
Yeah.
Great. Hey, I don't see any downside to this.
I think it's a win-win for you. I'd love to get you on there.
Deal.
Okay.
Someone else want to go first?
Thoughts?
Didn't ask for the order yet.
Yeah.
It was time to ask for the order.
It was right there.
I had to.
Yeah,
Push me over.
he was ready to go. So, gee, this is what we're going to do.
I thought he stroked me really well. You fed my ego. This is a sort of a chest beating kind of business, and people do this out of passion, right? So I thought you did well extracting my hot buttons from me, which is pretty important in this sort of thing.
What did you all think? Teams? What could he have done better?
Could have started better.
Well,
What'd you like about what Rex did?
Sam?
I was going to say more of a critique. Is that I guess I think you had to do this, but the questioning went on a little bit long, and I could see him maybe getting forward, or where's this going, maybe like give him more attention in the beginning, so he's not like going through the
I thought he made like the best connection out of everyone who spoke, like with the actual client or investor. Like he was more conversational and made him seem comfortable. So I thought that was really good.
And I think there came a point where we were over here saying, go for the close.
Yeah.
I might have done one thing, which is anchor him at a point in time, which is to say to him, so if I could show you a way to increase the number of bookings that you have and put in place a marketing program that is super easy for you to continue to have relationship with your customers, would that be of interest to you?
Yep.
And as soon as he says yes to that, if he starts getting squirrely later, you can reset the conversation back to that anchor point. Now, remember, I thought you'd be very interested in a program that blah, blah, blah. Can we talk a little bit about how you see that program not fitting? And then that gives you the opportunity to go in and find out why he's objecting to it. But once you get him closed on, this is what is important to me, then everything falls off of that, what he's agreed to. It's the first time you've gotten him to say yes, so just keep going until he says no.
Yeah, I sat there thinking, gee, here's a guy who wants more business, loves what he does, wants more business, wants geographic flexibility, and is a little bit afraid of technology. So you got to make it easy for him.
Right.
If you can wrap that all together, that was it. Gee, we'll do this, and let's talk about how we make that happen right now.
What was really nice too is you let him tell you where his
That's right.
pain was. You know, I'm booked 55% of the time. I definitely have some open spots. Oh, wow. Which is a great thing. If your customer can tell you where the pain's coming from, boy, I could use some spare cash. Funny you mention that.
The other thing that you might want to weave into this, as you are in real life trying to get guides up and running, is that whole seasonality thing is big, right? And if you can offer a way to, as part of your pitch, talk about leveling things out a little bit so that feast and famine doesn't happen.
Because he also could have said to you, when you tried to anchor him in on getting more days, he could have later on, if you didn't get him to say that, later on he could have gone, no, 55% is great. I'm taking next 3 years I'm going to take it down to 45 and then 35 because I'm semi-retired. Then you would have had to sell not more days, but making it easier or be able to book things out farther in advance to plan his time better. You would have sold different attributes
Or
of your
target
service.
premium pricing for a given
Right.
day. Yes.
That was great. Thank you. It's the line between us and lunch. So I'll go a little quicker here. One is to think about shooting for the moon. What is the most you can get out of your target? And walk back from there. Don't walk up to it. Start there, start big, and then figure out what's reasonable over the course of your conversation. This is, again, more just establishing the dialogue, follow up with an email the next day, later that day, whatever it is. The guy I talked to on Thursday, an hour after the call, this is fantastic, here are a couple suggestions for places for lunch in 2 weeks. Jake?
I was just gonna say, in terms of follow-up emails and things like that, I've, in the last 6 months, gotten into the practice of at the end of every meeting, whether it's with venture partners or my company, or whether with people that I'm getting pitched by, the last part of the meeting is saying like, okay, just to be clear, our actionable steps are, I owe you an email the next 2 days of the pitch deck. From you, you're gonna do some research on whether or not you have a competitive portfolio. So don't even wait till after the meeting to follow up. Follow up right there in the moment to make sure everybody is perfectly aligned on the actual next steps coming out of the meeting.
I think you just got to our last slide. No, great.
Homework,
Yeah, there you go.
all right? So I want everyone has a target ask determined by now? So you've identified who you're going to ask, stalk them online. We're not videoing this, are we?
Camera's right here.
In the nice way, in the non-pejorative. Can we use that word here? In the nice way. Stalk them online, create that human connection. And I want all this on a piece of paper. Define their pain points. I want my free time, but I want to expand my business, and I don't want it to be, challenging to me because I'm a Luddite. Write it down, write it down, write it down. Anticipate the responses and whatever issues they might have. Just be armed with that before you have the meeting, and define how big your ask might be, and start there. Got it? And then finally, be as nimble and dynamic as possible. Don't get programmed in. Be flexible, understand that the meeting's going to take an arc that you just don't expect. It always happens. And then walk away with some sort of commitment. I'm going to get this information for you tomorrow. We're going to meet again in 2 weeks. I'm going to connect you with XYZ, or gee, I'll have the contract for you on the desk, tomorrow by FedEx, and this is what we're going to do to make the next step, and that's all about, again, reinforcing who you are as a person and your external facing self. Any questions? What's for lunch?